Good night. This is the Callister Foy Show, and I am Callister Foy. This is episode 9, and today is January 10th, 2025. And on the hot seat tonight, we are going to discuss how could you not know? And this is pertaining to the indictments that have come down against 3 commissioners of the Brian Roach administration. The Commissioner of Police, former Commissioner of Police, former Commissioner of the Office of Management and Budget, and the Commissioner of Sports, Parks and Recreation. Martinez, Ray Martinez, Jennifer O'Neill, and Carl White. So again, on the hot seat tonight, how could you not know? And as I told you before, we're going to get right to it. So, first of all, let me just say, it's never good news to hear that individuals in the community who are in high government offices are indicted. Nevertheless, if you are appointed to do the work of the people of the Virgin Islands, you are expected to uphold the law and not break the law. So I ask the question to Ray Martinez, how could you not know that engaging in unlawful acts with a former federal informant will end up with you being indicted for any crimes that you committed with him? To former Commissioner Jennifer O'Neill of OMB, how could you not know that engaging in any crimes with a former federal informant could lead to your possible indictment? And to former Commissioner of Sports, Parks and Recreation, Carl White, how could you not know that engaging in any criminal activity with a former federal informant would end up with your indictment for those crimes? The indictments lay bare the greed that I've been speaking about, even through the campaign season, and more recently on this podcast. It is the love of money that makes individuals engage in criminal activities. You knew about Whitaker, him being a former federal informant, him being someone who has boasted about taking down one of the biggest companies in the world. by being a federal informant and testifying against them. Yet this is the individual that you made your bed with. Then if you make your bed, you're going to have to sleep in it. Many people might believe that this is a one-off in a vacuum, but I've been saying it for months. The entire government of the Virgin Islands under the Brian Roach administration appears to be corrupt to the core. Every department, every agency, every board, every commission, every authority, every office. And many people hear me say that and they say, well, those are bold accusations. But I keep saying, lawlessness done in the open locally may not be lawlessness that is accepted by the federal government. I want to get the people of the Virgin Islands to take a step back. While these are federal indictments outlining criminal activity almost as an enterprise unto itself, let us expand the network and see what we may find. We have commissioners of government who have the influence, the power, and the knowledge about huge government contracts, both funded through federal dollars as well as through the general fund locally, who can, under the color of law, use those powers, authorities, and knowledge to engage in criminal activity. What if this is more widespread than you think? What if much of what we are seeing in the federal indictments for these 3 former commissioners and for Charlemagne, who all are connected through a common thread of working for the Brian Roach administration? What if they are doing it on the local level through general funds allocated through the legislative branch? You would want to ask, then why isn't the Inspector General conducting investigations to see if even this type of criminal activity has occurred, is occurring, or why hasn't the investigative arm of the local Department of Justice not conducting any investigations, all while the people at the Virgin Islands complain every day, giving examples of criminal actions? You hear contractors publicly speaking about some of the issues they face in the open that reeks of criminal activity, yet we have no local indictments and apparently no local investigations. So again I ask, how could you not know when the people of the Virgin Islands are lamenting every day on the radio stations about what they are seeing openly being done, which resemble criminal activity? We heard about the wood with Charlemagne long before he was indicted by the feds. We heard about the high-handedness of commissioners long before Ray Martinez, Jennifer O'Neill, and Cal White were indicted. It is this high-handedness, the appearance of being corrupt, that has the community speaking out on the radio stations every single day. So how could you not know? We hear stories of contractors not getting paid. We hear stories of contractors not fulfilling contracts, millions spent, and then they are out of the contract and you bring in another contractor, 2 and 3 times the amount of the original contract. And yet there is no investigation, no indictments of what is obviously, if not conflicts of interest, or mismanagement of government funds. It must be worse that it is being done intentionally. So, again, how could you not know? The governor of the Virgin Islands openly says he does not know. He's hearing about these indictments and what is going on in the media and from complaints or indictments when they are unsealed. Yet this is the same governor, lieutenant governor administration that will be with the same people who are now indicted taking full credit for opening parks, opening the racetrack. They are breaking projects open with shovels and pickaxes. And in full view of the public, taking credit. But you realize that nobody is taking accountability for what we are now seeing in the public news. So if they take credit for the good, how is it they don't take accountability for the bad? It doesn't take another commissioner to get indicted to realize that at this point, Governor Bryan has to be sitting and contemplating whether or not he must resign because he is the head person in charge who appointed many of these people or nominated these people who were then ratified unanimously or at least with a huge majority by the legislative branch. That is a damning indictment of the executive and legislative branches of government in the Virgin Islands. If 3 of the commissioners who the legislative branch gave their blessing have now been indicted for criminal activity. But did the governor know? Does the governor know? Well, he knows in the news now. But isn't this the same governor, as I said before, who terminated the Attorney General Dennis George because he was not kept abreast of a lawsuit being filed? He needed to know. But yet he does not know that his commissioner of police, his commissioner of OMB, and his commissioner of sports, parks and recreation were in bed with Whitaker of Mon Ethos. When he knew full well who David Whitaker was, because he had to be vetted and allowed into the circle of this network. If you recall, it was former commissioner of OMB, Jennifer O'Neill, who called in the feds for alleged bugs in the Office of Management and Budget. Yet it was Commissioner Ray Martinez who came to the fore and spoke openly about that investigation. Not the feds, but the Commissioner of Police. Then we heard that Mon Ethos was responsible for a contract through the VIPD and maybe other agencies, only to find out after that David Whitaker pled guilty to planting bugs in various agencies. My people of the Virgin Islands, let me say this to you. David Whitaker planting bugs in the agencies, we have no idea for how long and what conversations he was recording or has been recorded. We see a little sliver of some of the information that are on recordings, whether it is from phone logs or whether it is from Mon Ethos bugs, we don't know. But based on what we have seen already, for example, we have a recording where Carl White says he has been doing this for a long time. And then he moved to try to not get caught by doing the things that he did for a long time to evade being caught in criminal activity. Yet he was caught. Greed is one of the biggest reasons why a lot of these criminal activities are now being exposed. And as I said with the Epstein enablers, they must be kicking themselves because they are the ones who exposed the Epstein sex trafficking and enabling by the government officials of the Virgin Islands. They exposed themselves. Now here we come to indictments of 3 former commissioners of the government of the Virgin Islands under the Brian Roach administration, who must be kicking themselves because they helped to expose themselves to the feds. So how could they not know? How could the governor say he does not know? They eat together, lime together, travel together, in cabinet together. They have meetings together. So we are to believe, the people of the Virgin Islands are to believe that we have rogue commissioners using their power under the color of law enriching themselves and nobody else knows. The old people say, where there is fire, there is smoke. But I say, who you is who you is. There was an employee, a lottery. That was exposed in the media of having been paid and yet did not do the work that he was paid for. What did his commissioner do or his director do? Nothing. That is a crime that was being committed, and yet it was a crime blessed by the director of lottery. What did the governor do? Is now a double crime. Stealing government funds under pretense that was done by an employee who didn't work, approved by a director who knew the employee didn't work. And what did the governor do? Nothing. Triple crime. But you see, those are general funds. And in the Virgin Islands, general funds is the piggy bank of our local elected officials and appointees. The same former commissioner, Jennifer O'Neill, moved $25 million without approval from the legislature. What did the Attorney General do? What did the governor do? Nothing. A crime. Nothing was done. We have contractors who state that they do work, and we have officials in this government who would then refuse to pay them thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars. What do any of our government officials do? Or the Attorney General's office? Nothing. And so the contractors who are being extorted have no recourse. Who can they go to? If they go to the VIPD, it's going to get shut down. They go to the Attorney General's office, it's going to get shut down. And if they dare take it to court, the government of the Virgin Islands will blacklist these contractors and they will never get another job under this administration. Plus, the case will be locked into court. With no idea when it's going to come forth. And so the contractors eat it to stay doing business. Not with the government of the Virgin Islands, but with the leadership of the government of the Virgin Islands. Pay to play. Quid pro quo. And that is why I ask, how could you not know? How could you not know when it is in the open? Carl Knight is now in charge down at WAPA. Anthony Thomas is now working at WAPA. Anthony Thomas was the Commissioner of Property and Procurement. Anthony Thomas quit Property and Procurement and went to work for Monitos, for David Whittaker. And then he left Monitos and David Whittaker, and he's now back in the Brian Roach administration, quote unquote, down at WAPA. So how could you not know? My people of the Virgin Islands, as I said to you in my podcast last night, maybe a federal takeover is going to be out of your hands. Because based on what I'm seeing, the level of corruption in the Brian Roach administration is far-reaching, and the network isn't just simply Ray Martinez, Jennifer O'Neill, and Cal White. And if I know how the federal government operates, once they smell blood in the water, they continue to investigate. They continue to seek informants. They continue to seek plea deals where those pleading guilty will give up people in the enterprise in higher positions who have done far worse than they have. It is not going to be business as usual in 2025. 2025 is the year of justice. So let me just say no to all the family and friends and allies and contractors who are buddy with these same commissioners. You are being observed. Because if Cal White could take $16,000 and give information to contractors so they can bid lowest, and he has been doing this a long time, he had to learn from somebody. Who did he learn from? Who taught him the skills of not moving with documents, but just words? In the end, it didn't matter. The corrupt act is even thinking about engaging in the criminal activity and then furthering it. by taking the money and awarding an illegal contract in the first place. And that is why I keep saying, it is one thing to dibble and dabble in the general funds. Because it seems that there is no accountability in the Virgin Islands for our local general funds to hold our leaders accountable for any stealing, shuttling of contracts, extortion, bribery, or pay to play. None. None. The only people locally who get indicted or get arrested is the layman. Small chickens who they make a full example out of in the Superior Court. Because anytime it is a high-ranking official, there are plea deals for probation. There are reversals of verdicts. There are agreements to pay back funds and dismiss cases with prejudice. But let it be a regular joblo. They get 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and Judge Alphonse Andrews in St. Croix, even after the government of the Virgin Islands got a plea deal and was recommending 10 years for the convicted felon, Judge Andrews threw the book at him and still gave him 30 years. That is the two-tiered system of justice that we have in the Virgin Islands. And so when I say, how could you not know? It is from that standpoint I am speaking. Nothing moves in the Virgin Islands without the people who are ultimately responsible for the billions that come into the Virgin Islands knowing about it. Nothing. And I say that from over 25 years of experience in these Virgin Islands. This is the same government that settled a sexual harassment claim with the former director of waste management, and before he quit, he was still on the job under this administration. What did the governor do? Nothing. Yet sexual harassment even say sexual abuse is a crime. In that settlement agreement for sexual harassment, or rather in that complaint for sexual harassment, was allegations of EPA violations, allegations of contamination, allegations of fraud. What did the governor do? Nothing. As far as we in the Virgin Islands know, there is nothing, absolutely nothing wrong at the VI Housing Authority Dunu project. Nothing. Even though there are allegations of contamination, of asbestos and heavy metals that may have leaked into the aquifer, nothing is being done. Nothing. No inquiry, no investigation, no information, no transparency to protect or inform the people of St. Thomas about what could be a potential serious hazard to their health. How could you not know? This is the same administration, the same government, the Brian Roach administration, that would terminate Miss Cranston for allegedly having lunch with Janelle Sarrow when she was running with Kurt Vile for governor against the Brian Roach team. What did the governor do? Nothing. Because he has the right to terminate an exempt employee for any reason under the sun. Is it right? Maybe not, but for sure it is lawful. Yet the governor says he does not know that his commissioners were engaged in this level of criminal activity. Mind you, Ray Martinez is his friend. Carl White is his friend. Jennifer O'Neill is his friend. These are high cabinet members who he speaks to almost on a daily basis. So I will end by saying this to the governor of the Virgin Islands, to the government of the Virgin Islands, maybe you should do a better job of knowing or trying to find out before the feds find out. Because when Charlemagne was arrested, along with Richardson and his wife Sasha, that should have been the wake-up call. The wake-up call for the government of the Virgin Islands and Governor Albert Bryan. But around here in the Virgin Islands, there's a tendency to string things out. Notice, the Charlemagne case is held indefinitely because of the amount of discovery, recordings that have to be looked through by the defendants. So that indictment will go forward later on this year. And I said that to say to the powers that be, the Biden administration is on its way out. And if your commissioners get indicted under the Biden administration, what you think gonna happen in 10 days when the Trump administration takes power? Because the same people in the Virgin Islands now, like the governor, Albert Bryan, who are saying, let's not prejudge. Let everybody have the day in court. You're presumed innocent until you are found guilty. Didn't afford President Trump that luxury. And so the incoming administration of hardliners gonna have a DOJ and an FBI with not only loyalists, but maybe people who have an axe to grind. So stones that were not turned over, because it was the Biden administration who didn't really want to expose some of the people who are aligned with him and his administration and policies, you will not be afforded that luxury come 10 days from now. So the trips to Washington that we always hearing about, maybe it is to get a preemptive pardon for crimes that you may commit or have already committed that you know are going to be found out. But the elephant in the room is this. Federal and local crimes can run concurrently. And so if the Attorney General of the Virgin Islands, Gordon Rees, or Gordon Rea, wants to maintain his reputation and integrity, I would suggest that he immediately empanel his investigative division, link up with the Inspector General's office, and audit every single government agency that has funding through the general funds, but mostly to look at who have federal funding. Because as I said before, 2025 is the year of justice. And things that used to go quiet into the night are now going to be exposed into the light. You notice when you see recordings and you see emails and you see the level of dishonesty from people who you thought highly of, you revere, and in some instances, you now even feel sorry for. Remember that those people did not feel sorry for you. Those same people did not think enough of the people of the Virgin Islands to stay on the right track. Integrity is built in. You either have it or you don't. You're either crooked or you're honest. You cannot be half pregnant. And sadly, it seems that the government of the Virgin Islands has people who are going to suddenly have amnesia or say that they have dementia before 2025 is done. Because they're already saying, I do not know. I did not know. These things that I am learning in indictments are shocking to me. I am telling you, the people of the Virgin Islands, there are many people who tonight, tomorrow, and for many months to come, will be walking on eggshells, will be looking over their back, and will be trying to find out if the conversations, texts, documents, bribes that they took were not recorded, are not known, and if they are not next in the eyes of a federal indictment. But while we speak about federal indictments, there will come a time when the embarrassment for the local Attorney General's office becomes so much that the federal authorities are coming into the Virgin Islands and indicting people in criminal activity that range from pay to play to extortion to bribery to conspiracy to commit all. and actually moving to indict, arrest, and take to trial these individuals, while they, the local Department of Justice, have not indicted one corrupt official. It doesn't speak well for law and order or rule of law in these Virgin Islands. And that is why I said there are laws, and then there are laws put in place to protect, enhance, and enrich certain individuals in this community. Sadly, there are laws, and there are laws put in place for the benefit of the very same people who write the laws, approve the laws, and then sign the laws. And so, I want to say, finally, the time is nigh. Maybe corruption has been the order of the day, but by now, the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch should realize they have been put on notice that people will not have the status quo anymore. The federal government is not cuddling and protecting you anymore. No more trips to Washington to quiet down the storm. As the 47th President of the United States, Donald Trump, said, the storm is here. You are forewarned, and so you are forearmed. Either have integrity, be honest, and do what you were elected to do and appointed to do for the money that you are supposed to be paid as a salary. That is all. Do not let money burn your hands. Do not let position make you arrogant. And do not let influence make you sell your soul. And so, in ending, I will just say this. My people of the Virgin Islands, it is going to get worse before it gets better. But as I told you, there's always hope and there's always light at the end of the tunnel. That our elected Attorney General, not our appointed Attorney General, will look in the mirror and do like former Attorney General Denise George and realize that his integrity is more important than anything else. So to the people of the Virgin Islands, I say good night. To the people in the Caribbean, good night. To the people in America, the US, good night. To the people in South America, good night. To the people in Europe and Africa, good night. And as you see, while I spend a lot of time speaking about the US Virgin Islands, the tying to the US with the incoming 47th President of the United States, Donald Trump, is pertinent to every single country and government across the globe. Because one thing is for certain, 2025 is not going to be business as usual for sex traffickers, child sex traffickers, human traffickers, corrupt law enforcement, corrupt judges, corrupt election systems and election officials. But most importantly, 2025 will be a year when justice, whether you like it or not, is going to come to the fore. My people of the Virgin Islands and the world, good night. This has been the Callister Foy Show. I am Callister Foy. You know, let me give you a little preview of what tomorrow. We're going to have a good session tomorrow. In episode 10 of the Hot Seat for the Callister Foy Show. And the topic tomorrow will be lawlessness. That's it. Lawlessness. And we will discuss that from top to bottom. And you will realize that we in the Virgin Islands have sat back and allowed a level of lawlessness, more than corruption, much more than corruption, lawlessness in every single aspect of our lives. This we cannot continue to do, and this we will not continue to do in 2025. Good night and God bless.